from going after the true knowledge of self stolen from Africa.
Yeah, that's right. That's what's up. Everywhere I go, I got to bring hip-hop culture with me. It's my safety net. It makes me feel comfortable. It makes me feel seen, heard, understood, and supported, and all that good stuff. It's just crazy to think that 20 years ago, 2004, is when we started Stolen from Africa, beginning as like a t-shirt campaign to highlight social justice issues and things that are happening within our community, sparking dialogue, conversations, and ideas to create change. 20 years, I think about the accomplishments from connecting to artists like Drake and Kendrick Lamar, and even getting the opportunity to travel to Africa, to South Africa for free, based on the works that I've been doing in community, right? Right now, we're also partnered with both school boards, the TDSB and the Toronto Catholic District School Board as well, and been working with thousands of young people as well. I see a good friend of mine here. Pleasure, I gotta shake your hand, my friend here. You don't even know how special it is to have someone like this right here in their space, man. Mr. John Jack. We go back in community work as provincial youth outreach workers, and he was one of those individuals that showed a lot of dedication, and I've always been inspired by your works as well, so I just got to big you up, man. Great to see you. Yeah, sometimes I'm just beside myself because so many organizations and ideas have come and gone, and I just know that our foundation has always been rooted in our history, our culture, our identity, but most importantly, connection. Stolen from Africa is a t-shirt that started off as a t-shirt and evolved into a nonprofit arts education organization. But the whole motive was to spark conversations, to get us talking about things, right? Because I realized that through conversations, that's the easiest way that we can minimize ignorance. If we're not talking about each other, or if we're not talking to each other, how can we understand? It was an opportunity to bring more awareness, to find collective compassion and empathy, and then figure out what we're going to be doing next. I'm going to share a bit about my journey and the stories and things that I've been doing within the community. And I'm going to keep it interactive. I don't want to just be up here talking. I see a lot of faces and stories and personalities and a lot of things that you all are doing. So we're going to keep it going. Just working in community, it's been so great to have so many people that believe in what we're doing. Different funding opportunities, different partnerships, and people who have really pushed our movement forward. And this has been like years of working hard and tirelessly, and we can't do it alone. So we're definitely grateful for all of those supports. Now, this is just some quick overview. I'm going to keep it real light and simple. I'm not going to get super, super deep, but there's some things that we got to cover. So overview, just really going to discuss representation. We're going to discuss values, and of course, celebration, because that's what this month is all about to me. When I think of Black History Month, it's a time for reflection, it's a time for connection, and to refuel ourselves. Oftentimes people ask, like, why do we have Black History Month, and why do we need to be doing this? And I say, why do we celebrate anniversaries? Why do we celebrate birthdays? We're already born once, we don't need to celebrate it again. But we do that to remember ourselves, man, to acknowledge ourselves, to celebrate our joy, to celebrate our connection. And also too, when it comes to our history here in Canada, North America, and other places, there has been interruptions in our history. Sometimes people forget that segregation and exclusion was by law. So even if you were a good-hearted person, in the context of being a law-abiding citizen, you just fall in line. So I see Black History Month as an opportunity to restore integrity, to acknowledge some of the interruptions that have happened in the past. And this is our opportunity to explore that. Okay, we'll start off with representation. Now I'm curious to know, what does representation mean to you? I'm gonna see if we have some people who are brave and feel encouraged enough to share. What does representation mean to you? Is there anything that comes to mind when you think of representation? Don't be shy now, it's okay. Oh yes, go ahead, my friend. People at the table where decisions are made, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Is there anybody else who would like to share about representation? Oh, you have?
When I think of representation, I take the first part of the word of like rep.
Yeah.
So having a spokesperson, having that keynote speaker, and I think especially in the Black community, the churches, pastors, ministers, they've been a part of that representation aspect of sharing the message of the Black community for the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I'm curious to know, what are some implications like when there isn't representation? What are some of the impacts of that? Just out of curiosity. Do we have any brave folks that would like to share? Oh, we have a hand? Oh, yes. Hi.
I feel like if there's no representation, there's also an erasure that starts happening.
I appreciate that, absolutely. Oh, we have one more guest. Go ahead, my friend. Power. That's a deep one right there. Okay, okay. Y'all are brilliant. I love that. I love that. Okay, and just to add here, I think representation is to really feel seen, heard, understood, and supported, and all of the things that everybody has mentioned as well. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to take it back. So we got the bios and all the accolades and amazing things that we have done in community, but I'm going to take it back. I'm going to take it back to the beginning. Now, does anybody know something interesting about this photo here? Sorry? It's okay. What I was going to say is that I have the biggest smile in this photo right here, you know? So I have the biggest smile, right? Yeah, I always loved this photo because it just reminds me of the places I'm coming from and the awareness that I was allotted to at such a young age. This was my French immersion class, kindergarten, senior kindergarten, and it was really interesting, right? Because being in this environment, I did have a lot of amazing experiences, a lot of love and connection, but then there was also another side where I became very present of who I was, my race, my identity, not just by students, but also by teachers as well. And I remember coming home one day and my mother told me this story. I don't remember it, but this is what she told me, that I came home one day and I said that being black is a disappointment. If I was white, things would be easier. Now, what 6-year-old comes to that conclusion? To really have a certain level of experiences, a certain level of treatment, to be able to say that, to be able to articulate that. It's deep. And in conversations with my mother at that time, she was mentioning about how it was the first time where she realized that having a black child, a black son in particular, was when she became an activist. She never knew what an activist was until I came around. Now you have to understand, my mother had me at the age of 19, was kicked out of our house, super religious household, 7-day Adventist, and God forbid that the neighbors see what's going on. My mother stayed over at Humid House in Toronto, which is a super old place for young teenage mothers and supporters. And so my mother was a resident there and finding support. And when I asked her, like, why'd you put me in the French immersion? Because she wanted me to have a better education. She wanted to give me the opportunities because she knew the struggles that I would have to be facing. However, in these experiences, it created a lot of challenges. This bright, happy-go-lucky child became even more introverted. I felt disconnected. There wasn't any representation. At the time, I didn't have teachers who looked like me. I didn't really feel wanted by the teachers. I don't think they really knew how to even interact with me. And this carried with me throughout pretty much my entire schooling education. I didn't see the connection between education and empowerment. School was just something that I just went to, and it just became more of a social space. Until I discovered hip hop. Hip hop became my way of finding my identity and making sense out of my experiences and the things that I was going through. So I pursued that. And in high school, I eventually left school. School didn't seem like it was a thing for me. So I left and I started pursuing music. But I was very fortunate. I was very fortunate because I had the opportunity to get to the University of Toronto through a bridging program called the Transitional Year Program. Has anybody heard of the Transitional Year Program? Okay, you may want to add that to your list. So for the people that you're serving, this could be some other opportunities, right? So just because we have these barriers and things that we've experienced that have turned us away from education doesn't mean that we can't continue education. So the TYP program was a bridging program for those who have faced different barriers for whatever reasons, but had the aspirations to continue with post-secondary education. And it was interesting. So I went back to my school teacher and I went back to my principal, and they both wrote me reference letters to get into this program because they knew that I was a smart kid. I just didn't apply myself. Like anybody knows those kind of students, right? So anyways, I got into the University of Toronto and it just changed everything for me. It was the first time I started really understanding society, understanding my experiences, and giving context, essentially allowing me to realize that I'm not crazy. And perhaps, maybe I've just been gaslit this whole time. I recall taking classes like sociology and this course called Caribbean Thought, which was talking about colonialism and imperialism in the Caribbean, and understanding words like systemic oppression and all these words that I never knew that was giving context to my experiences. And I remember going through this almost like I don't want to call it like a midlife crisis at the age of 20, but pretty sure it felt like that. it was just like this unraveling of all these experiences that I had built up within me, and I didn't know what to do with it, but now it's contextualized. I have words to express this. And I remember in the midst of it, I was sitting at Robarts Library, St. George campus, U of T, in the library doing homework and whatnot. And I got this idea of writing this poem. And it really just expressed everything that I was feeling. But this poem is very significant and meaningful to me because it's what started Stolen from Africa. So I started Stolen from Africa right at the University of Toronto. And from there, I made that commitment. So I'm going to share this poem with you. Let me see if I remember it. Caught in the madness, you probably think I walk and talk with an accent, but that's the only thing that I know, embedded in my soul. I play roles of the civilized, trying to visualize a standpoint of acceptance in the eyes of the other. Growing up, color was an issue that ripped through my identity. I was never seen as intelligent. It kept me silent, somewhat blinded in the midst of a tyrant, under submission, assimilated in their perfect tradition, locked in my mental prison, and I don't even have the key. It's blasphemy to capture me, inflicting a tragedy while trying to appear prominent in the eyes of the dominant. Black skin, white mask, how long will this fight last? They colonized my mind. I swallowed pride and followed lies. It's hard to keep your head up when you're left with hollow tides. Language is the window to my soul, but the blinds are closed. I can't see, I can't find my home. Lost identity causes lost serenity. The cost is plenty, see, harsh like a felony. My pain is clearly in the form of strain theory. I'm seeing it. I've been labeled delinquent and deviant. Slowly, I start believing it. Like a self-fulfilling prophecy, programmed in my mind, got me moving robotically, like zombies, under total control. It's like I sold them my soul, the assassination of my character. Where do I go? You can clap. Finger snaps, all that good stuff. Finger snaps, all right. Yeah, and it was at that moment I made a declaration that I want to do something. Because I think the frustrating part was for me was I had to wait until I got to the university level to find the truth and to feel empowered. Where was this when I was in high school? Where was this when I was in elementary school? Where was this type of representation earlier on? Then I started thinking about how many of my peers have gone through schooling and dropped out, or gone to jail, or strung out on drugs and didn't have an outlet to let them know that, hey, there is reasons why you're experiencing what you're experiencing. This isn't just draw the hat. There is a sequence of events that have led to this final equation. So I made a declaration that, you know what, no one that I come around is going to experience that. I'm going to ensure that I'm going to instill confidence, self-esteem, a sense of identity with anybody that I come across. I guess they call that the hero's journey. Sometimes there's the villain's journey, and that goes a whole different direction. But, so I just wanted to give a bit of like context to some of those experiences. All right, when it comes to Stolen from Africa, here are just some of the things that we really zone in on. Black history in Canada and abroad is taught from a Eurocentric, Americanized world. As they say, until the lion learns to write, then the stories will always be glorified by those who are in power, right? We have the lack of meaningful and engaging and relevant Black history teachings. Like, how could we really draw on the youth, the young folks, right? We live in a culture right now with social media, everything's evolving. How are we going to speak the language of the youth? 40% push-out rate amongst Black students in Toronto high schools, right here. I was one of the fortunate ones. Like, I don't use my story as like the template. I'm like the exception to the rule. Well, there's a lot of factors involved here, but these are things that we're thinking about. Youth feel isolated and excluded from schools and communities. These are my personal experiences. And the lack of support for young people within the public school system. So now the purpose. For us, it's about confronting issues surrounding Black oppression and humanity as a whole. Looking to support young people across Canada, worldwide, to promote local histories and culture. There's so much history and contributions, but for us, a lot of our history and contributions have been interrupted, forgotten, or erased, as if we haven't been here. Where's the Black people in the Bible? But anyways, we won't go there right now. So to provide opportunities for self-determination and knowledge of self and building up self-esteem. right? To challenge stereotypes, stereotypical ideas of Africa and people of African descent. These are internalized perceptions of ourselves. I remember in my younger years growing up, not wanting to be African. I was more Jamaican than Canadian, first and foremost, but African was a whole other identity. And I'm so happy to see that today, that things are changing. People are embracing their culture. When they go to schools, embracing their African identity. It's amazing, because when I was growing up, it was like the self-hatred was very evident within us. And if I'm honest, I feel we still got a lot of work to do, a lot of healing, a lot of unraveling, and also to build positive connections to our communities. All right. And also, too, some of the activities that we're engaged in. So if you all need some supports with some of your activities, if you could think of some young folks that you feel would tap into this type of vibration, we're right here. Facilitate engagement programs, workshops, and speaking engagements in schools to encourage dialogue and identity, affirmations among students and administrations, to provide educators with relevant interactive learning resources for students and curriculum development support. So we don't just work with young folks, we work with everybody. We work with the community. To implement Black History Month high school tours. We've been very busy this month, which I'm grateful for, yes. And of course, you know, through arts, education, fashion, music, and the arts. Like, these are my foundations. This is what we use to build and connect people. Okay, so now we got that out of the way. This is a quote from one of my poems, and I see it as like the slogan for Stolen from Africa. Because I know it's a name that's provocative, it invokes a lot of different emotions, but for me it's about this unraveling, like discovering the things that have been left out of the equation, the things that have been stolen, not just people, but we're talking about philosophy, spirituality, identity, resources, so many different things. It says, untold as a saga unfolds, the mystery of our scattered history. Because I'm a firm believer, man, that truth is true today, truth is the same 10 years from now, 10,000 years from now. Eventually, things will come to light. All right. African heritage trivia. We're going to test your knowledge. We're going to see how tapped in, how tuned in you are when it comes to the perspective of the Black experience. Okay, so I want to see here. So I want to see who can answer this question. What country created the popular Latin dance salsa? So was it Mexico, Cuba, Spain, Colombia? Which one? Who would like to guess? Okay, yeah. Okay. Any else guess? Cuba? Oh, y'all are, okay. Yes, it is Cuba. Yes, okay. Round of applause for getting it right. Okay, it is Cuba. But specifically, Afro-Cubans. And this is something that I always, again, this is all part of the Stolen from Africa philosophy, meant to unravel, to discover different aspects of who we are. In the summertime in Toronto, we have Afrofest. Has anybody heard of Afrofest? Know about that? Okay, if you haven't, you definitely need to come by and check it out. We got a booth, come check us out. But Afrofest also happens on the same weekend as Salsa on St. Clair in Toronto, which is a big Latin festival. It's incredible, it's beautiful. But the disconnection of the salsa roots in the context of African heritage is separate. And I want to know why. I want to know, why is there not those connections being made when it's so evident? Those who are in the salsa world and they've done their history and their foundations, they know about this. But I like to show this because, again, a lot of times when it comes to Black history, it's very Americanized, Eurocentric, North. But the truth is, the culture is vast and beyond. And when I think of like our Afro-Latino or Latinx communities, they are always left out of the equation. So for me, I made a declaration to myself that I'm going to do some more research and see Wagwan over there in these neck of the woods. Yes, go ahead, my friend.
I lived in Cuba for 7 years.
Okay.
So the same issues we see in North America when it comes to Black and more self-identity, when it comes to Afro-Latin, you will see heavily in Cuba. Whereas the representation of Black Cubans or Black Latin Americans in Cuba, mainly out of Santiago and Guantanamo,
Okay.
although they're heavily populated, they're not in the space to help me. So like to start you up, that's one thing, but it's very heavy. You can see if you live in Cuba in those spaces, how evident it is that cooking the diaspora has had an impact on the culture of Cuba and Latin America.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and for me, like when I hear all these different stories, it just becomes so empowering. Oftentimes we're just so caught up in this North American viewpoint and the stereotypical image when there's so much beauty and so much of our culture to be discovered. So I just wanted to share that, and thank you for that. All right. So in terms of like representation, there's some things that we've taken upon ourselves to do. So this is part of our Crystals as Crowns campaign. This was funded by the Government of Ontario, the Trillium Foundation. Very grateful for their contributions for this project. And what we did is we highlighted 10 communities across Toronto that are typically known for violence and drugs, gangs, you name it, all the symptoms of poverty. You can go down the list, all of those. But we also want to show that these communities also foster brilliance, resilience, and there's a lot of joy, there's family, there's community, there's connection. But this isn't what you see when what's being broadcast on the news. So we highlighted 10 individuals who showcasing their stories and their experiences, and what we did is that we got these posters on TTC bus shelters and buses and trains, so we really made this into a campaign. It became this entire campaign to re-envision what it means to come from these types of communities. And I have a video that I'm going to share with you from one of our participants. And John, you're gonna recognize one of our friends here. Okay.
There's so many young people, families, residents that just work day to day and they work hard. The young people, they face so many stigmas around here. Obviously, like you said, being from Kingston, Galloway, Danzig, with the whole tragedy that happened, a lot of people are like, ooh, we don't want to walk into Danzig. But you walk in there and it's a community full of love. It's a community full of family. It's a community full of partnership. And they just want the world to see that versus what they see on the news and within the media. They don't only want to be seen as the neighborhood improvement area, the neighborhood with the guns and gangs and the drug violence and all that stuff. With my crystal mind, I will continue to influence this generation with positivity. With my crystal mind, I will continue to affect change, positive change. With my crystal mind, I will never give up on my community and my youth.
Absolutely, we are resilient. That's big up Alicia, man. I heard some folks recognize, that's what's up. And Alicia was someone that I also worked with in Scarborough, and people who are really contributing to community with their heart and soul is always have very high regards for that. So that's just like one clip from our campaign, and it was really successful. The feedback that we received of those feeling represented and feeling seen and heard and supported and uplifted was really powerful and definitely warmed our hearts. Yes, okay, so in terms of representation, man, does anybody know this flag here? Yes? Nova Scotia. Now, why would I have a Nova Scotian flag here? Now, I added this quote at the bottom, which I just, thought of, and it goes, when the Underground Railroad ended, something else began. Now, we all know the story of the Underground Railroad, right? Slave Africans came from the South and followed the North Star, Harriet Tubman, and came to Canada and found freedom and lived happily ever after, the end. Just like a fairy tale. I've always wondered what happened to them. They came here and then the story just stopped until I did some research. And then it's, okay, now I get it. Oh, okay, so you're trying to tell me that, okay, slavery did in fact exist in Canada. Okay, so there were like segregated schools and all these other things that we've never spoken about. Now, I mentioned Nova Scotia because Nova Scotia is very dear to my heart. It was the first time when I learned about the history of Nova Scotia in terms of the Black experience. First of all, African Nova Scotians do not identify themselves as African Canadian. They identify themselves as African Nova Scotians. And there's a reason for that, because a lot of them go back 8th, 9th generation Canadian. Their families go back till the 1600s for a lot of them. They can really trace back their lineage. There's a lot of history. And then when I learned about this was at the time when I was still at the University of Toronto, and it was at a time where people were stolen from Africa, you're in Canada, what are you talking about? Slavery never happened out here. That's an American thing. What are you talking about? And when I learned about Nova Scotia and the history and the connections, I had to go out there myself. I remember I took a bit of my OSAP and I booked a flight and I just jumped out there because I had to see for myself. And I connected with people, descendants of Africville. By any hands, does anybody know what Africville is? Anybody heard of Africville? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna get to that in a second. I learned about Africville, met people from Hammonds Plains, from North Preston, all these people who just have such a rich history and culture. And being out there just felt like extended family. I felt like I was literally with relatives. And to be honest, it was the first time that I actually felt Canadian. I felt, okay, we have a flag, we have a home that I can call home and represent when it comes to the Black identity and experiences out here in Canada. So Nova Scotia is very dear to my heart. I learned about Africville, which was a community that was self-reliant and sufficient. Long story short, it was destroyed by the government in the late 60s. They labeled Africville as a slum. Africville was not provided with paved roads nor running waters, but these people were taxpayers, by the way. A lot of the times people like to say that they were squatters and just taking up spaces. No, they were taxpayers, they owned that land. Africville was a thriving community, right? The government destroyed the community. Not only that, they destroyed a lot of it in the middle of the night, including the church on Sunday morning. I couldn't believe the atrocities when I was learning. I was like, yo, y'all should have never told me about Africville, because now I'm going off. I came back to Toronto with a vengeance. I was like, I'm telling everybody, I'm snitching. I'm telling everybody. But it gave me a foundation and just the allyship, the advocacy, the connection, and the empowerment. And now Africville was a place that was acknowledged by the United Nations as a human rights violation, and the government was very slow to make some things happen. 2010, out in Africville, the government gave like a formal apology. Okay, we'll leave that alone. It was more so, we're sorry that this happened to you, and now that we know this, we can move better for a better community. Like, there was no real substance to it, in my opinion, but what's happening out in Africville now, there is like an Africville museum where people can go in and learn more about the history and the culture and whatnot. But again, like learning this history, I was like, where was this in the history textbooks? I know that now we're making a lot of progression and we're learning more about things, but at that time, I was like, what's going on? And this was back in 2006. Nova Scotia gave me a sense of belonging within Canada, gave me roots here, and I used that to fuel my energy and to really continue this legacy of what else are they hiding? What else is being missed? What else is being absent or being erased from the equation? Oh, and then it just kept going. Does anybody know about this photo here? Has anybody, by show of hands, how many people have heard of the Colored Hockey League of the Maritimes? Oh, y'all gotta do some homework. Long story short, Black people were playing hockey in Canada before the NHL was established in 1917. The Colored Hockey League was established in 1895. You have to understand, growing up in Toronto, Canada, I'd done every typical thing that every Canadian kid would do. Skating, tobogganing, swimming, playing hockey, in the cul-de-sac, and when the car comes by, you grab the net, you're like, car! Did all of that. But there came a point in time where someone told me, again, and these are the things that people tell us, it's when we don't know ourselves, we can just take in whatever people say and just accept it as truth. They told me that I shouldn't be playing hockey because I'm not white. Play basketball. I don't like basketball like that, straight up. I like skating, swimming, that's me. But I took that in and I internalized it, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm not. And I stopped playing. Now I do more skating now because I got kids. I got young kids and they want to go skating. So now I'm reliving my childhood through them and making sure that they don't have those type of psychological barriers and interferences. Now they know themselves. It's like, what do you mean? We contributed to this history. But not only did this Colored Hockey League exist before the NHL, but it also contributed to the fast-paced hockey that we see today, the slap shot, the athletic goaltending. All the staples of the National Hockey League were staples within the Colored Hockey League. And there's a lot of evidence. There's like newspaper articles and so on and so forth. So again, for us, it's about that representation, that identity, that culture, and just that curiosity of what else is being missed. Okay, and then we just kept going. Keep discovering. So, more trivia for you. When did the last segregated school close in Canada? Is it A, 1945, B, 1977, C, 1983, or D, 1967?
I think it was 1996.
Okay, yes?
I want to say 1967.
Okay, yes? C, eh? Okay. Do we have any options over here? Yep. C, eh? Okay. Huh? None of the Okay, where is he? Can I get like a drum roll for this one? Can I get a quick? Okay, 1983, Lincolnville, Nova Scotia. Now, whoever said 1967 is closed. That was like a trick one, because that was like when the last segregated school in Ontario closed. So that was a little trick one for those who've done their research. That was in Ontario. But in Canada, it was 1983. That's crazy, man. I was 1 year old. That's just segregated schools in Canada. Now, I also find it very interesting, because I mentioned about the legacy and the history in Nova Scotia, right? And how Nova Scotia and Ontario, the two provinces with the highest black population, had the segregated schools. It might have existed somewhere else. Maybe some of y'all can do some research, but from my understanding, Ontario was prominent, Nova Scotia was prominent. It's wild. And someone said 96, that's the residential schools. So close, not a mix up there. Yeah, so again, all of this history to understand the interruptions and the experiences. And again, like segregation, this is the way how systems have worked. It's racism embedded in law, embedded in culture, in traditions, and even identity. I'm not even gonna go through like the whole example of Black Sambo and some of those old school racist cartoons from the earlier ons, but it just shows how racist ideologies are just woven into everyday life where you don't even notice it. So even if you're like a good-hearted person and whatnot, like you're just subjected to all this like racist ideologies by default, because it's so woven into it. And what makes it even more complicated is that when we touch on these topics and these issues, people don't hear the racist ideologies or the resistance against that. What they instead hear is an attack on their culture, tradition, and identity. Does that make sense? And this is where we have to like unpack. I'm always in a perpetual state of learning and unlearning. I have no issue being corrected, but sometimes, oh man, that thing, cognitive dissonance, man, it's one hell of a drug. But again, like for me, everything I do is always led in the space of compassion, it's in the space of empathy, but it's also in the space of truth, because there has been a lot of interruptions, a lot of misinformation. I need to get into all that with the world and whatnot, but we need truth, we do need compassion, and we do need ways to restore integrity, essentially. So with all these different pieces, I'm learning so much, and I just know that it keeps going. There's so much more to build on. Okay, so with all that being said, values, get to values. I'm curious to know, when you look at just like even in your personal lives and families and whatnot, what are some things that you value? What are some things that you hold dear to your heart? Yes, honesty and loyalty.
I value those very much.
Appreciate that. Yes.
I think for me, I would want to reframe this plane.
Ooh.
Do I want to continue to participate and prepare?
I love that. Oh man, finger snaps to that one, but that's a beautiful one. That's a beautiful one. Yeah, I saw this quote by Gregory a while back. May rest in peace, amazing individual. And he said something along the lines of the idea of leaving this planet as light as we came, and leaving with a heart of light and a light heart. Things can get really heavy sometimes. So that requires forgiveness, that requires things that we want to bring to the table. But legacy is very important because that makes it intentional now. Now we wake up and we're on a mission. We're on a mission, and I definitely resonate with that because everything I do is rooted in intention, is rooted in that legacy. Because I know there's going to be someone who's coming up, may not even be born yet, but may see some stuff later on and be like, I'm inspired by that because it's rooted in truth, and we're going to keep it moving. All right, so a little bit more history for y'all, because it is Black History Month, African Heritage Month. Patty Wars, man. Is anybody aware of the time when Canada wanted to ban beef patties? It was crazy. I'm mind blown. I'm like, why are they always coming for us, yo? Can we just live? We just have our patties? It's incredible. It's a long story short, there's Patty Wars. It's actually a series. It's not really a documentary, but it's more like an episode, so to speak, that's on YouTube called Patty versus Patty. So if you want to check it out later on, you can do that. But basically what it is that back in 1985, the government of Canada was coming down and cracking down on Jamaican businesses and wholesome families who were selling patties. And what their whole idea was that it was a violation of the Food and Health Safety Act, and because of the way how patties were packaged. So it was more like a beef in a flaky kind of thing, and they're saying that is different than what a hamburger patty would be. And for us to be like, oh, patty's a patty, and what's going on? And these people were getting hefty fines of $5,000 back then, which would be equivalent to about $11,000 today. So imagine you're coming up from yard, you're coming up and just trying to do something wholesome, a legal business, and you can imagine the hoops they had to go through just to even get a spot down in Kensington Market and whatnot, Patty Palace, and just trying to make it happen and make a decent living. And then these guys want to come with their clipboards and be like, so long story short, they ended up advocating for themselves, became a big news media. The word got all the way to Jamaica. People are calling in. What's going on? It was a big deal. Long story short, they ended up taking it to Parliament, and they came up with finally an agreement. And that's where the term Jamaican beef patties came about. So if anybody's ever wondering that, because I always wondered that, Jamaican patties, okay. It's just a patty, you know what I'm saying? But just on the technicalities to get the people them off of us and call it Jamaican beef patty. And just so you know, the date already passed, but February 23rd is National Patty Day. You're late though, but next year, you know what to do, all right? Okay, so that's just another fun fact. But I like to share this story because it really just shows the power of advocacy. And just a reminder that even for the simplicity of things, man, it's always a fight. It would be nice to just be able to just relax a little bit and just exist and not having to have all these other things as barriers one day. With the help of you all. Okay. All right, so some more fun facts now, because again, like I like to just give some history and interesting things and whatnot. So this image over here, we got Bob Marley and we got Marcus Garvey. Bob Marley, that's a photo that was actually taken in Toronto. So Bob Marley spent some time in Toronto. For those who don't know, Toronto is the place that really introduced reggae music and culture to Canada. Toronto was a stomping ground, Little Jamaica, man, that's my community. Yeah, man, we there. Eglinton West. Randy's Patties and all that good stuff. Okay, you already know. And Marcus Garvey, Pan-Africanist, super important when it comes to like black liberation. All before Malcolm X and so on and forth. He was doing this in the early 1900s, mobilizing people by like the millions. These incredible works. Now, a lot of people don't know that there is a Canadian connection to this quote here. We have this quote here where it says, "We are going to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery because with others might free the body, none but ourselves can free our mind." Does anybody know what song that is from? Louder. Okay. Come on, I know y'all seen the Marley movie and whatnot. Okay. Now, that speech that was given by Marcus Garvey in 1929 was Sydney, Nova Scotia. So again, Nova Scotia keeps popping up. There's so much history. Like, what is going on? People were mobilizing in the early 1900s. This is phenomenal to me. But not only that, but just knowing that that speech that was given inspired Bob Marley's Redemption song. So that's a Canadian connection for you right there. You know some Canadian black history? No, let me scratch that. Canadian history that is often left out. Okay, some more trivia. I feel like you're all gonna get this, but anyways, we'll see what's up. Okay, so that's trivia. What country has the largest black population outside of Africa? So we have Brazil, we got US, Canada, England.
Brazil.
Man, I feel like I made this too easy. Okay, fine, okay, we'll just keep it moving. It is Brazil, 56 million. And that was interesting, it's like more than Canada and the US combined. So again, I'm very intrigued by like the Afro Latinx community because I'm like, wait a minute, why are they always left out of the equation? And I guarantee, man, once I start doing some more research, I'm gonna find some gems. I know I'm gonna jump on a plane and be like, look, I'm coming to y'all. And I'd be like, y'all should have never told me about Brazil. So there's a huge community out there. And just in general too, even like Mexico, Guatemala, Peru, so many places where black people are existing, but these are stories that are not part of the equation. We just want to quote Malcolm X and anyways. But hey, just something for y'all to know. Okay. So celebration. I'm curious to know, what does celebration mean for you all? Anybody want to share the ideas of celebration? Y'all don't celebrate? Oh, was there?
I think there's a hand in the back.
Oh, there we go, yes.
Acknowledgement of achievement.
Acknowledgement of achievement, yes. Love that, man. I would even just add to that, like acknowledgement of existence as well. That's a celebration. Like all of us being here today, man, it's a celebration, absolutely. Remembering, Remembering is such an underestimated mindset and an action It's important to remember, absolutely, absolutely. Anybody else on this side here? Yes.
Today, learning.
Learning, love that. Thank you for sharing that. Oh yes, hi. Sorry? Rejoice. Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely. Amazing, amazing. Yes, and in the bottom there I say, what's a tree without roots? How do you expect to bear fruit? You know, that's one of my lines, and it always just reminds me of like when we don't know our foundation, don't really understand those who came before us, then we're just like a leaf just blowing in the wind and always just trying to grab whatever we can in the moment, following trends and whatnot. But like when we know ourselves, it's okay, man, that will come and go, but I'm still gonna be here. So finding our roots and our foundations give us the ability to want to celebrate. Okay, and we're almost done here, but I just want to show some things because I like to just expand the psychology of things, right? Because there's a lot of unlearning that we all need to be done. Some of the things that we've been taught in schools and images and so on and so forth. I always like to show like the size of the continent of Africa. A lot of the times people will be like, oh, I'm traveling to Africa, as if it's like a country. When there's 50 plus countries in Africa, it's like, where are you going? That's like me saying, I'm going to North America. Okay. Stop trying to minimize the continent of Africa. And then, of course, we have the amount of resources and whatnot. Yes, of course, there's poverty. Of course, there's destruction. There's corruption. But guess what? We have that here. What are we really talking about? We have that here, too, right? But again, the images that we don't see, like Ghana is like the leading a source of chocolate and gold. We also know about the Congo with our digital devices and our touch screens and whatnot. There's all kinds of atrocities happening out there. But Africa is like, it just keeps giving. And these are things that we need to acknowledge. So I always like to show that. And last image, this is what we call like the Peters projection map. This is not the map that we see in schools. This is not the map that we see in school. So I want to leave y'all with that, which is more of an accurate depiction of the vastness of what the continent looks like. The maps that we have in school minimize the size of Africa, but I'm here to say that size does matter, and we can see this right here. Africa is very prominent. All right. We'll just leave y'all with this last quote here. It says, when the roots are deep, there is no reason to fear the wind. And this goes back to the original image that I showed you of me in my classroom and my class photo and just some of the experiences and the insecurities that I created or that I experienced. And now, through my journey of like self-discovery and finding my roots and sharing it with others, like I can honestly say that, yeah, the roots are deep and we don't fear the wind anymore. So I want to thank you all for sharing space with me and being attentive. Scanning the room, I've noticed that a lot of y'all were eyes on me, so I really appreciate that. And I hope that you've learned something, hope you're inspired, and perhaps there's something that you can take back to your communities, to your families, and to the people that you serve as well.
Going after the true knowledge of self stolen from Africa.